All right, welcome everybody. As we get settled in here, just know that we will have a full kind of panel discussion for you all today, and then we'll have a chance for you all to ask questions of our students a little bit later. To begin, this is just going to be our virtual open house student panel. We have some great student representatives here from UW-Madison to talk about their programs, their experiences, what that all looks like. So while we go through our kind of main questions, if you have other questions that come up, feel free to put them in the chat. That's going to be our main form of communication. We do have some staff members also looking through the chat, so if you have those questions, put them in there, and we would be happy to answer those or send those to our students to then answer near the end of the session. So with everyone getting settled, I think it's good for us to begin. My name is Anna Danucci. I'm the enrollment coach that will be facilitating this discussion. So I work with a lot of professional degrees and certificate programs to help students figure out what's the best fit and get you started on your application materials. And then here are our students that will be talking today, and I'll be unsharing the screen in just a little bit so you can actually see their faces with us today, and they'll be able to introduce themselves. But just to give you a little bit of a background on Rishi, Tenzin, and Minto, and you'll be happy to connect with them as we move forward with this panel. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and now you'll hopefully see all of our faces. And right now I'm going to ask all of our students to kind of introduce themselves. So I will start. They'll introduce themselves with their names, the program of study, and how many years they've been in the program. And then we'll move into, again, some of those more formatted questions that we have that we get from students all the time that they will be able to answer. So I'll start with Minto.
And we're just doing a little round robin on just like our background and why we're in the program. Okay, cool.
Yeah, intro. Yep.
So, I was a neuroscience major at Northeastern and basically like had always been interested in psychedelics and psychoactive drugs and ended up writing a senior thesis on psychedelic therapy and went to a conference to do that. And I was like, oh, wait, actually, like this is a whole career field. So I found this program and was pretty one and done and applied. So I'm in the master's program right now. I'm in my third semester, and really enjoying the experience so far. Did I hit all the questions? I'm living out in Boulder these days, but I'm from Texas originally.
Yeah, that's great. And just to clarify, your master's degree program is the psychoactive pharmaceutical investigation one.
Yes, PPI.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Tenzin, you want to go next?
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Tenzin Pinto, and I go by he and him. I am pursuing my MS in biotechnology at UW-Madison, and this program is for 2 years. So if I try to like sum up my like about myself or like about my life as like short as possible, I would say like I'm someone who is like quite fortunate, surrounded by a lot of unfortunate situation or circumstances, I would say. Because unfortunate because like in 1959, my parents had to flee Tibet because of the Chinese occupation and moved to India, where they literally knew no one and built everything back from the scratch. But with like the grace of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, they were able to build it. They were able to do pretty well, I would say. So yeah. But on the flip side, like I consider myself lucky, I said, right? Fortunate. Because despite all the difficulties, I was able to find like scholarships and like study here at UW-Madison. So yeah, and it be able to participate in like a lot of exciting things like this one. So yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing, Tenzin. All right, Rishi.
Hi everyone. So I'm Rishi. I'm pursuing my master's in ECE, Electrical and Computer Engineering. It's a professional master's for like 1.5 years. So prior to this, I worked for 4 years after my bachelor's back in India. And yeah, I mean, I wanted to learn more, so I chose, and fortunately, I was able to come here. I'm specializing in computer architecture, and I mean, this university leads in that field. There are a lot of veterans in that field here. So yeah, I mean, it's still unreal. So I'm in my first year of master's. This is my second semester. Uh, it's going great. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. And just to clarify for folks that are on the call, we have a lot of different types of master's degrees here at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. So there's accelerated on-campus programs that are usually done within 12 to 16, 18 months. We have hybrid programs that can be done partially online, partially on campus. We do have professional, kind of like coursework-based, applied work master's degree programs, and then we do have the traditional, basically research-based master's degree programs as well, fully online and then fully in person. So there's a multitude of different ways to be a part of the master's degrees here at UW-Madison, and just making sure when you're looking at your master's programs, double checking that modality and kind of that understanding of what that program can offer and where you'll be at when you're taking that program is just important to note, because all of our students have a bit of a different master's degree that we're talking with today, and they're in different situations for how they're taking that program and what that focus is. So now we're going to jump into a pretty basic question. How did you choose your program? So what made you decide on this program? What were some of the things that led to that decision? And Rishi, I'm going to actually start with you, okay?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, for me, it was a pretty straightforward decision to apply here. Again, because of the expertise which is available here, the teaching, the professors, and taking advanced grad level courses. Well, we are able to work on some research projects. So there's a lot of learning, which I wanted to learn. So luckily, yeah, for me, both of them fell into place. Uh,
Yeah.
so
And so you did some of like that research and figured out what the program
yes,
offered before applying? Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
I went through the website, the EC website, and then saw the coursework, the courses which are offered, and I was able to visualize what my semester load is gonna look like from that. So yeah.
Great. Yeah. And Tenzin, how did you choose UW-Madison? Tell us a little bit more about that story.
So before like starting my MS program at UW-Madison, I was actually working as a researcher at a cancer hospital in India. So I was basically responsible for assessing the compatibility between a donor and a recipient, see how good of a match they are. And while I was glad at helping them, like being able to help them, I like deep inside, I guess I was missing out on school a lot. Like I was missing my school a lot. So I wanted to go back. And I've always wanted to study abroad, ever since, I'd say, and especially in America, probably because of all the Hollywood movies I've watched over the years. And yeah, but like it was a dream that is too good to be true. I never thought like this would happen for me. And one day, like out of blue, I decided to apply for like the Fulbright scholarship that I saw the announcement of. I mean, I like told myself like, what's there to lose, right? So I applied for the Fulbright scholarship, also known as the Tibetan Scholarship Program, and I actually got selected for some reason. I know. Yeah, but now I had this awesome scholarship and wasn't quite sure like how to go about like finding the right match, like right program for myself to pursue the MS Biotechnology. So I decided to do some like basic research, top school search in the Google, what are the schools on the list, and like that's when I stumbled upon UW-Madison. Although like I did not know a lot about the UW-Madison, like apart from Dr. Richard Davidson's work before, like prior to applying to the university. But yeah, I didn't know much else. So I dove through the program curriculum, see what they're offering, and yeah, then they narrowed it down to a few, and UW-Madison stood out to me because it offered the in-person class and had strong focus on the business element of the biotech, which I was like wanting to study. And to top it off, like they accepted my like supplemental scholarship request. So yeah, so it felt like perfect fit, like this is it. So yeah, like
That's great. Thank you so much. And Sarah, tell us a little bit more about your journey to figuring out the psychoactive program. You touched on it a little bit, but I'd love to hear a little bit more. Yeah.
Yes, I love this question because I think the psychoactive pharmaceutical investigation program is so, so unique. So I had known that I wanted to get into some capacity of psychedelic research for a while, and I'd taken a gap year to kind of like look at different programs, and I looked at, I knew I wanted to do a master's and not a PhD. I'm a research scientist, but I just wasn't sure that a PhD was the right like commitment and right fit for me. So I was looking for master's programs and honestly having like a hard time finding programs where I could do research that were focused on psychedelics that weren't PhD programs that had opportunities to do research as well without, being a research focused program like a PhD. So I think I actually stumbled upon this program through like a social media post. It was something that was like so happenstance. But I don't really believe in coincidences. So I looked at the program. The course list especially is what attracted me. I'm somebody who is very interested in psychedelic therapy and research, but I don't want to be a therapist or facilitator. I feel like a lot of like 90+% of psychedelic graduate programs are like professional degree programs like we are for PPI. A lot of those programs are for therapists or facilitators or people who will want to be like clinical practitioners, and that's not me. And so the biggest thing that I think attracted me to PPI was the ability to have like a research, empirical, very like science focused program on psychedelics that wasn't necessarily about being a mental health practitioner. But we do have a lot of like opportunity to take that in different directions. So yeah, that was it for
Yeah.
me. And I was like literally one and done. For me, I like had wanted a program like this in my head for so long, but I had professors literally tell me like, don't be a psychopharmacology major, you're gonna hate it. Like programs that you're thinking of don't exist, and they didn't until PPI did. So I was one and done. I just applied to this one, and yeah.
Yeah. So definitely like looking at curriculum, but then also looking at the outcomes of the program and what makes sense for you in the long run. Yeah.
For sure. The career opportunities too.
Great. Yeah. And Minto, I'm gonna toss this next question back to you just because the psychoactive program is a little bit different than the other two programs represented here of just the modality of it. Do you want to explain a little bit more about what your classes are like and what that kind of like credit load looks like?
Yes. So PPI is asynchronous and online. The way that our sort of situation is that we do take online classes, and most of our classes are on like kind of a week cadence. Some of them will have regular meetings, most of them don't, but most classes will meet a couple times just throughout the semester. It is a program where you need to be self-organized and self-motivated because so much of it is asynchronous. It's kind of like material and lectures will open up and you can do that on your own time. For me, that was a huge plus and that works really well. We have a ton of students that are really taking full advantage of that flexibility. That being said, we do have a couple students on the ground in Madison, and I did like that there was flexibility in this program to, if I never wanted to step foot in Madison, I didn't have to do that. But I'm also somebody who does want to go and do research and be in person and see what Madison is like. So I have the opportunity to do that as well. And we have some students that like, I'm in a hybrid class right now where I'm in an online section, but I have some friends in Madison in the in-person section. So I also like that there was flexibility to do a little bit of both. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. And Rishi, do you want to explain a little bit more about like your classes, what those look like?
Yeah, so so my courses are all in person, yeah, in class. So I have like 10 credits 9 credits this semester, 10 credits it was last semester, and I'm left with 10 credits for the final fall semester. So yeah, I love the teaching methods that they have here. It's very different from what we had in India back. So I do enjoy attending classes, and the last semester classes were like inverted classroom concepts, right? You first study and then you go and apply in the class, in the labs and stuff. This sem is more advanced grad level courses, so there's a lot of research paper readings and stuff, which in the end we have to implement as a course project. So it does tend to get a little hectic, definitely, because at least I'm not living in a hostel or what we used to call, so food and all was taken care of. But here, we had to cook, we had to figure out a lot of things on our own. So it's hectic, but it's satisfying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for context, usually a full-time grad student will be taking roughly like 9 to 12 credits if they're doing the full-time course load. Otherwise, there can be flexibility with some programs about being part-time, taking less credits each semester, that sort of thing. But Tenzin, why don't you talk a little bit about your classroom experience, what that looks like so far?
Oh yeah, definitely. So in terms of like class strength, our program accepts about like 28 students each year, and most of them are working full time. So yeah, and then Like we have classes on Thursdays through Saturday, and like it's in person. And although it's not a lot of classes, but we get like fair share of assignments, which gets us pretty hooked up or like pretty busy, occupied throughout the week.
Mhm.
And we get notified about like about our assignments through Canvas, which I was using for the first time when I got here, and I didn't know much else. But I didn't know like I didn't have much trouble with the Canvas because it was pretty intuitive for me. Uh, but yeah, and but UW student portal was a whole different story. Like we had to add these things called tiles, and which is basically like shortcuts to different like facilities across the university, right? Like and I remember like during my scholarship meeting, like orientation, they mentioned something about credit shopping. But luckily, like I did not have to do that. Like I did not have to deal with that because the course for each semester in our program is pretty defined, like pretty just like decided from our program itself. So we have a structured program, and we also use like Microsoft Teams like most of the time. That's because we get a ton of like group assignments, and that's our main tool of communication. And and if you have any doubt, like we can shoot mail to our professors, and they're pretty responsive. So yeah.
Great. Yeah. So all three of you have a very different experience in terms of what classes look like and how they're structured and that sort of thing, which is hopefully really good for some of our students to hear about. And I'm also maybe more of a fun question. I'd love to hear a little bit about what a favorite class is that you've all had before. So Tenzin, I'll start back with you. Do you have a favorite class that you've taken so far that you're excited to take in this course?
Uh, yeah, so as I told you before, like it's a structured program, so it's not like I can pick up the classes and then I can
Mhm.
retake or something like that. Um, but then like we have this business part of the course like every time, like every semester. And since learning about like the business aspect, the business part of the biotech was like something new for me, and I find it pretty like find myself like pretty drawn to it. Plus, like we also have to learn about like FDA regulation process, like the approval process and all, like how FDA sees a product and what criteria it looks for when a product is applied for like approval to hit the market, basically. So knowing how stringent the FDA process is, it gives you kind of like a mixed feeling because it makes me feel safe while taking the medications, like while taking the drugs and take the labels behind the medications more seriously. But at the same time, I am a little annoyed with by all this stringency because we have to replicate the same for our hypothetical products that we get for our assignments, right? So it's like, okay, although I wanted to be stringent for my safety, but then at the same time, I have to replicate the same. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But you're getting the full scope of the process, which is important too.
Yes.
Mhm. Yeah, that's great. Rishi, do you want to talk a little bit about a favorite class that you have taken or that you're looking forward to taking?
I think I have a bunch of them. uh, when I came here, I didn't really have a favorite subject per se, but after I took it last semester, there were these two courses: digital system design and intro to computer architecture. So uh, the professors made it really fun. Of course, it was hectic, but it was fun. The project and the general interaction in class with the professors themselves. So both of them were my favorites. This sem, I have uh, three more subjects, which like all of them are really nice. So it's really hard to pick and choose. And I think the one or two more subjects which I'm looking forward to take fall is like introduction to operating systems and stuff. So there is a renowned professor here, Professor MZ, I think. But I mean, if he's offering, or it's gonna be fun, is what I've heard from his past students. So
Yeah,
that is on
that's
my
great.
to-do list for next fall.
Great. That's awesome. It looks like you have something exciting to look forward to then.
Yeah, I have a lot of things.
Good. Minto, do you want to talk a little bit about a favorite class you've taken or maybe one that's also been the most helpful?
Yeah, definitely. I literally can't stop talking about my classes. I think they're so cool. That's gotta be neuroscience of psychedelics, honestly. It is an elective in our program, but that was one of the ones that really attracted me, and the coursework has just been really just so fascinating. I was a neuroscience major, and so I feel like that's built upon that foundation really nicely. And I'm somebody who's really curious about like plasticity and brain states, so that's married really nicely. And like literally, our TA is a podcast host from a podcast that I already listened to. And then the first day of class, I was like, oh my God, like, like the community around that and then the content I think has been really, really good for me, especially as a neuroscience student. I've enjoyed that. The central nervous system design, drugs, actions, and designs is also really fascinating. I love the professors for that course. And it's another very like hard sciencey, like pharmacology, like drawing molecules type of class, which I love. I would say that one's probably one of the more helpful ones, honestly. It's a popular choice among a lot of the students. I feel like it has a rep for being a very rigorous course, but being very fascinating and like very in depth. And that's also a course where they'll have us, I think similarly to what the other students were talking about. In CNS, they'll also have you like write paper profiles on drugs and think about the process of designing a clinical trial or the process of data analysis. We did a lot of that in the neuroscience class as well. So those have been two of my favorites. Yeah.
Yeah, preparing you for the field for sure. Um, so kind of going into more of the experience you have as a student, especially thinking, work-life balance, student balance, what does that look like, or what have you found to be beneficial as you're figuring out the balance you have as someone, whatever context you have as a student? So a few of you have talked about, being more full-time or having other requirements or being maybe more full-time student. Let's think about and talk about what aspects of that balance you found, how the programs helped you figure that out, and also how you figured out, some tips and tricks to figuring out that balance as a grad student. So Minto, I'm going to pass this right back to you, and then we'll move from there.
My work-life balance is a little ridiculous, and I think that's part of the reason why I chose this program, why it ended up working out well for me. So I'm living in Boulder. I do about like 5 or 6 hours a week in this program. So I'm taking like 2 or 3 classes normally on PPI online. And then I work a part-time job at a coffee shop, and I'm also a part-time musician. I'm starting to kind of do that more as a career, so that's definitely been a challenge this semester, is balancing kind of that other aspect of my career. This is something really interesting to think about for PPI, I think, because so much of our coursework is asynchronous. I think you really need to be self-motivated and structured and disciplined to really be an effective student in this program, honestly. I think my biggest tips are like creating as much like school separation as you can. I really try not to study at home, because when I was in like traditional programs, I could say, well, I'm going to campus to go and sit in this lecture, and it was that much easier to kind of separate it out. But for me, it's been less about finding the motivation and the time to work, because I love the program so much and I'm so intrinsically interested in it. For me, the balance has been more about learning actually when to draw those boundaries with school and say, like, I'm tired, I'm not having a productive study session anymore, like I need to go and do something else, or saying, I'm not studying past this time, or creating like good, I think like study hygiene for yourself, I think is really key for this program. And knowing like that you're somebody that will need to do independent work and also be willing to kind of coordinate across time zones for like group work and things like that. Is there another aspect to that question?
No, that's a really good answer of just figuring out boundaries and trying to stick to what those would look like. And the self-motivation piece is huge for many types of grad students. Yeah.
The other thing I'll add is like there's like taking advantage of the flexibility without letting other people take advantage of you, because I'm somebody who, rather than working like one 40-hour week job, I have a couple different like part-time jobs, and I see this as one of them. I see my first job as being a student. But because I do other part-time work and I have other things going on in my life, I have had to like also be good about communicating to other people and being like, hey, like studying is my priority. I think my schedule can look like it's a lot more free than it is, because studying isn't like I am at work. It's because I am more flexible, but I've also had to be good about, sticking to that and still like maintaining focus on it.
Yeah, definitely communicating through those boundaries. It's great. Thank you. Tenzin, I'd love to hear a little bit more about, especially because your structure is a little bit different, and being like that Thursday through Saturday. Why don't you talk a little bit about your work-life balance, how you've decided to go about making those boundaries, or what you've learned along the way?
Um, Honestly, I think like I feel like that I feel like I struggle with time management a lot of times, and even though like I only work like 8 to 10 hours a week, so there's not as much on my plate like in that sense, right? But almost everyone in my, as I said before, like almost everyone in my class is working full time. So when I ask them like this, the same question, like how they manage their workload and schoolwork and at the same time. So it seems like we are all on the same page somehow. Um, yeah, so they said like they're putting aside like 2 hours or like 1 to 2 hours every day for the assignments, and that's pretty much what I do too. And I set aside like a couple of hours each day to work on like assignments and make sure to keep up with the required readings because I do not want to be dumbfounded when they like start discussing about like the case studies and whatnot. Like yeah, during the class, day, yeah. And I also make sure like I have some time for myself to do the things I like. Like I love swimming. I used to love swimming, I should say, and I love running too. So yeah, so I set aside my own times too.
Yeah, important to keep some of those healthy habits up too. Yeah. And I mean, as a former grad student, time management was always something that was continuously in the works and trying to figure out. So as you move through the program, it'll work itself out and you'll figure it out as you go forward. But Rishi, why don't you talk a little bit about your management of like time, work-life balance, student life balance, what that looks like?
Okay, so I never really faced the problem of managing time, I guess. I mean, I have 3 courses and I have a teaching assistantship this sem, so it's widely different from my last semester. Um, Last sem I had at least classes only on 3 days a week. This sem it's all the 5 days, so plus office hours and stuff. For me, how it works out is my teaching assistantship itself is like a relaxing, you know, point because it's related to my work ex. So I don't really have to think so much about it because I know a lot of stuff on that already. That serves as a relaxing session. Plus, I just stress the importance of sleep. If I get 6 hours of sleep, I'm good through the day. So that's all I care about. So I go to sleep for 6 hours. If that breaks, then yeah, it's hard to manage the next day. But if I get those 6 hours of sleep, I'm able to manage studying, working, and sometimes I mean I read books. I read a lot of books, so maybe half an hour or an hour per day I just spend time reading it. And yeah, I started working out last month, so that sort of is going. So yeah, I mean
Yeah,
it's okay.
prioritizing your needs and figuring out, what works best for you and to make you feel good as you go through the program. That makes a lot of sense.
Can I
Yes.
add one more
Definitely.
thing?
Yeah, of course.
Something that I've heard kind of echoed in like everybody's responses here that I was talking to another student at Northeastern about was like the importance of seeing your job as a student and understanding that your job as a student is not just studying, it's also taking care of all of the like social and emotional and like physical things that support you to be a good student. I've definitely known students that are like, I am a student, so I'm gonna do really good at being a student, and then they burn themselves out. I think like especially for those programs where you're also doing like other stuff during, you're also holding other positions during the day, or like programs like PPI, I think there's like almost more of a need to pay attention to your mental health and make sure that you're, taking care of yourself.
Definitely. Yeah, that's a really good way to kind of like provide a synopsis of, taking care of yourself is also just as important as taking care of your studies and doing everything else. Because ultimately yourself matters, right? And that'll be you bringing the best version of yourself to class and to work and whatever other commitments you have.
Be a better student for it, yeah.
Mhm. Exactly. Yeah. And so thinking about, how you're taking care of yourself, how you're working or, taking on different commitments and things throughout your graduate program and your studies, how do you feel that your graduate program is supporting your career goals, your personal goals? What do you see this program doing in support of those next steps that you're looking to achieve? And Tenzin, I think I'll start with you for this one.
Sure. So, as I said before, like I wanted to explore the business side of the biotech, and but I wasn't quite sure. Like I've never studied business before, so I wasn't exactly sure what courses to focus on, right? So thankfully, like our program has like the set curriculum, which takes like my terrible guesswork out of the picture. And of course, like this would be a different story for someone else, like if they have like different like goals or interests, like if they know something like better. But yeah, however, like there was no restriction like if you want to study something else from some other departments too. Like I decided like to take the data visualization class from the business department and academic writing from I think it was library science. Yeah. So yeah, and with only 28 students accepted each year, as I said before, it feels like we are in a small community and networking wise, I feel that it's pretty good. And it has been fantastic for me. And they also invite like a lot of guest speakers to talk to us about their work and how and what got them into that field. So definitely like that broadens my horizons too. So yeah, and personally, I'm getting like the supplemental scholarship from them, right? So yeah, it's supporting me in a lot of ways.
Yeah, so networking and really using your curriculum to, better your skills. That makes a lot of sense. All right. Rishi, do you want to talk a little bit about like your career goals and how you see this program really helping with those career goals after you graduate?
Oh yeah, I mean, I got a first-hand experience of it last semester itself because I'm planning to pivot from what I worked before and what I want to work on later now. And I think solely because of the courses that I took last semester, which had almost no relation to what I had worked on before, I was able to get some, calls for internships for those specific roles. I mean, that was which I didn't really expect because pivoting is usually hard. And yeah, so the curriculum is just like properly laid out for me to be able to, you know, like I'm planning to be a system architect. So these courses which I'm taking, I'm sure they add weight to that. And after the experience which I had last semester, I'm just confident that I'll be able to, get um, to be able to make some headway in that direction.
Yeah, you
So
see a direct correlation to what you're learning to what you'll need to do
yes,
in the field. Definitely.
yes, yeah, the industry appreciates it, and it's clearly visible. So it's nice.
Great. And Minto, what do you want to say about your career goals and how like PPI really focuses on that? And I know you've talked a little bit about it, but definitely going into some of that a little bit more. We'd love to hear it.
Definitely, yeah. So I'm hoping to be a research scientist. I have experience as a molecular biologist doing preclinical, like kind of biotech startup research. So I know that I like wet lab work and that kind of process. But didn't really have any experience with academic research just yet. For me, the career support in PPI has been so major, honestly. So I'm in the process right now of taking advantage of the opportunity to go to Madison in the fall to maybe do some research with professors. And this is the type of thing where like I need to kind of be reaching out to them and initiating those conversations. And for me, the thing that's been really helpful in this program is not direct access to career opportunities, but access to opportunities where I can figure out what I want from my career because I'm partway through the program and I don't know what kind of research that I want to do. So for me, it was less about I want to get this particular type of job after I graduate and more that I am so like thankful to take advantage of the opportunity to explore like a type of research or two at UW. I will say like the one-on-one and the community level support has been really great. I feel like we've always got some kind of like professional or interviewing seminar going on. Like we literally just had one yesterday. And when I met with my advisor to kind of talk about my goals, she was able to tell me, like here's a job search portal, here are some people you can talk to, and here is like a coach that we actually hired specifically to help students think about their resume and how to like think about their careers and jobs. So I've been like my expectations were like set pretty high just from the conversations I'd had with Anna during my enrollment process. But I think they've been pretty exceeded. Like there really hasn't been any resource that I felt like I've been lacking.
Great. Thank you. All right. And so kind of to wrap up our main questions here, just because you all have given us a good idea of, curriculum, your goals, how these programs are helping you reach them, I'd love to hear a little bit more about advice you have for students who are looking at applying to Madison. So, whether you're thinking advice for the application process or deciding on your grad program, or even, deciding on the ones to apply to. If you have any advice for prospective students or folks that are going through that admissions process right now, I think that would be really beneficial for our folks to hear online. So Rishi, I'm going to go to you first for this one.
Okay, I mean, so the first thing, though sometimes is a little hard, but uh, what I found which helped me was like I had a clear idea of what I wanted to do. I had a much more clearer idea about what I did not want to do. So that sort of helped me narrow down the specific program that I wanted to follow. And once that is, once that foundation is built, then it's really it's pretty unidirectional, right? It's it then gets a little easy to be able to write your SOP, finding people for your LORs, and once that foundation is laid, I was just once I decided what I had to do, it was pretty streamlined. So, I mean, I think that's what I would suggest is it's hard to know what you want to do or what someone wants to do, but it's easy to find out what we would not want to do. Could take some time, eliminate that, and then once that is done, it's then gets easier to focus on uh, the other documentation that is there to enhance your application. And also it shows, I mean, for people looking for scholarships and stuff, that also helps in choosing the right one. So yeah.
Yeah, so doing some stuff and making sure you have an idea of what you're looking for and then putting
Yes.
that self-reflection into your statement of purpose or talking
Yes.
about your letters of recommendation. Yeah, definitely. All right, Tenzin, do you have any advice for students that are looking to apply for grad programs?
Um, Not really. I wish I was better at time management myself. So if you are someone like me who struggles with time management, like I think it's the right point of the time, like when you want to start like building yourself this habit of managing time properly. And like for that, you can reach out to anyone like someone like Rishi who has like good time management. So yeah, you can reach out to them and ask them like for the tips and all. And also like with regards to finding the program or like seeing if the program fits you or not, you can set up an like a you can go through a you can go to some LinkedIn research and then see who is in that program and then try to set up an informational interview with them. Like ask them like, okay, I'm going to ask you about like the program. Will you have a little bit of your time, to for an informational interview? Like it's pretty casual. So yeah. And if you're like not an avid reader, and I believe it's the same for all the graduate programs. So if you're not an avid reader, I think it's the right time for you to build that habit as well, because you get a lot of like required readings and yeah, and I guess be the sponge, like try ready to absorb anything. And yeah, dare to dream as well, because when dreamt with conviction, sometimes it comes true.
Yeah, yeah, and definitely being willing to learn, yourself, your own habits, and then
Mhm.
also trying to take in as much information and opportunities as possible is what it
Yes.
sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Just wanted to add another point. Tenzin's, it just reminded me. So my classmate had come here for fall 2023 uh, from my bachelor. So he was another, a good point of contact for me to talk about the university and, what he was doing. We were specializing in the same domain. So uh, he provided me pretty good guidance on that. So, uh, sometimes seniors from colleges or as he said, on LinkedIn. So you find people. So uh, reach out to them, get more information, and it'll be very helpful
Yeah, finding
because they
those
have gone through
connections.
the same process. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, the more information and also the more experience you can learn from is great, especially
Yes.
when looking at grad programs. And hopefully that's what you all are hopefully able to provide a little bit of today and get students started to think on that. But Minto, did you have anything to add for advice?
Yeah, I think like thinking about what kind of life you would realistically be living with any given program and what you are and aren't willing to compromise, and like what you value in that choice, honestly, like how much you want to weight what like the program and the education is worth versus like location and lifestyle and things like that. Like I have a lot of friends who are in stages of their career, like they have personalities where if they found the perfect job or the perfect program, they would move anywhere. I am not one of those people. So the PBI was a really great fit for me because it was online. I don't think I would have chosen this program if it were in person, to be completely honest. So thinking about like, what do I actually care about as opposed to what do I think that I should care about? I think especially when you're deciding what schools to apply to, I think there can be some pressure to like use the shotgun method or to apply to a bunch of programs. But honestly, like when I really sat down and thought about it, I was like, this is the only program that I would actually be excited if I got accepted into. So this is the only program that I should be, even be applying to. Like, don't be afraid to really say what you want, because there were other programs where I was like, hey, like, so I love your PhD programs, but you don't have a master's. Like, can I master out, or like, can I make my own master? And they were like, no. And so those weren't the right programs for me. Um, yeah, I think just like honestly, like trying to be really honest with yourself about what things you do and don't care about, and weighting them accordingly. Tenzin had a really good idea to try to find people who are already in the program and reach out to them. That's such a good idea. I think students are always or generally going to be receptive to that. Little program ambassador plug. I don't know about the other master's programs here, but the psychoactive pharmaceutical investigation program actually has some really cool and really awesome program ambassadors, including me. So that's another great resource if you wanted to just talk one-on-one. There are meetings with students like me who are going through the program, and we like our entire job is just to talk to you about student experience and answer all of your weird questions. And like we don't report back to admissions or anything like that. It's like truly just for your benefit. And I've had some really great clarifying conversations with prospective students. So that's a great resource if you're thinking about PPI.
Yeah, and I will say just to provide some context to that. So there are program ambassadors for a few different types of programs. There's also the ability for students to get connected to a current student if they're not even like an official program ambassador, as we call them. So that would be, connecting with the main coordinator for the grad program or the enrollment coach for the graduate program, like myself. And then I would be able to get you connected with, a current student, or make sure that there is an opportunity for you as a student to connect with others, just to get that information there, especially if you're struggling to find folks on like LinkedIn or on your own. Then that's where you can reach out to the program itself and see if you can have a conversation with the current student. So whether or not they have ambassadors, usually they're really willing to help out and make sure that you have that opportunity, just to make sure that this is the right fit for you. So that was some really good advice, and kind of the end of our formal questions. We have had a couple of other ones come in that I've gotten through the chat. So one of the main ones we had was, what are some of the possibilities or kind of experiences of international students? I think thinking about this question, maybe to narrow it down or give it a little bit more structure, what exactly, what are some important things to note as an international student, especially on UW campus? Thinking about, Rishi, you have a TA-ship. What does that look like? Tenzin, thinking about your scholarship and what that looked like as you were working with your admissions process. Talking a little bit about some of those opportunities would be helpful, I think. So I'll toss it over to Rishi and then move over to Tenzin once we're there. Okay.
Yeah, I think, of course, I didn't feel like an international student after coming here. The people here are very nice. The place is very welcoming. So it was good. I think, but then as an international student, main thing is we have to keep our documentation in order always. Any sort of documentation, be it your I-20 or etc. etc. So then, as a TA, again, it was I just started TAing this semester, so mainly because of my work ex. Um, it didn't really feel that different. It was really nice to be able to interact with the other students, the undergrads, and the professor himself was, again, he's very welcome. So uh, there is, at least for me personally, there wasn't any challenge assimilating into the UW culture. Um, Except that, of course, because I have to cook. We cook Indian food at home. Sometimes it's hard to get groceries which we want, but other than that, it's okay.
Yeah. No, thank you. And then Tenzin, do you want to talk a little bit about your experience?
Yeah. So I think it's the same, rather it's like for both in international and domestic students too, like have a clear expectations of what you want and like have clear expectations of when you are in the program, like what will happen and all. Like in my program, um, they don't offer graduate assistantship, TA-ship, and all of these things. So if you are like if you did not know about it beforehand and then you come here and then find out about it, you'll be pretty disappointed, right? So yeah, have clear expectation, do some like good research about the program that you're entering into. And if your program is like able to like offer TA-ship, graduate assistantship, you can reach out to the professors like beforehand, before like reaching out here, so that you have better chances of getting the position. And yeah, in terms of anything else, like yeah, and then there are visa restrictions too, so you would want to follow that. Yeah, and in terms of like the food, you would want to know how to cook your comfort food. So yeah.
Yeah, and connecting with other folks, especially that might share community in that space. What are some of the grocery stores you can find the right food substances and stuff for? That's always important too. And I know this has been mentioned a little bit in the chat, but if you're looking for information on the program, guide.wisc.edu has all of our programs in there and has some very comprehensive information about funding, about admissions processes, dates, and all of that stuff. So if you are trying to find information, that's a really good place to start. And it does have contact information for folks that are coordinating the program. So if there are further questions, you're always also welcome to reach out to those folks too. With that being said, there are also international student services, and that can be found on that website as well. We did have another question come in asking about how does it feel to engage in a graduate program as a married person? How does one get to manage that? And while I'm not quite sure of any of all of your statuses, but thinking about maybe managing relationships in this context. So how do you manage, familial relationships or friendships as you're going through this graduate program? And what does that look like in terms of maybe setting boundaries or having those conversations, especially as you're going through a very rigorous program? And let's see. Sarah, do you want to talk about this one first, and then we'll see if anyone else has thoughts on it?
Yeah, I couldn't speak to being married. Interestingly, in the PPI program, because we are asynchronous and online, we have a huge diversity of student ages and kind of their family structures and what they're doing. Like, I'm literally like taking classes with people who are like in their 40s or 50s, or like they already have their primary career, they're already a family practitioner, or like they are literally married with kids. So I think it's definitely possible, but something that's come up a lot, I think, especially for those online programs, is drawing boundaries and prioritizing, honestly, because I think it's, for me, I've just found like my life structure is so different than so many of my friends right now. I'm 23, so most of my friends are post grad and working their first post grad job, and we just have different schedules. And I think, especially with online school, because it's less apparent, you're not like, I am getting dressed and going to work, and then I will be at work for 8 hours today. Like, um, I really have had to remind people in my life, like, because I have so many things going on in my calendar, like I've just had to be really calendar oriented to make it work. And I have, like, just being in the age range that I am, like, unfortunately, I do have some acquaintances or friends that are like just planning on a really last minute basis, or they just have a different schedule. And I've had to say, like, hey, like, I'm sorry, like, that just doesn't work for me. Like, I really like am calendar oriented and need to be prioritizing school. And like, for me, honestly, the biggest thing, especially with relationships, has been um not being flexible for my partner, simply because I am the one with the more flexible type of work. It's something that I really enjoy about the program, but it can be a bit of a slippery slope, honestly. So like maintaining your study hygiene and not letting people feel entitled to your time just because you could be flexible simply because you're online. Like, nobody would walk up to you in the middle of your workday at an office and ask you to just like to take 3 hours off and then just finish it later. So treating it like a job, I think.
Yeah, thank you. Tenzin or Rishi, do you have any thoughts on, especially like managing relationships while you're in the graduate school programs?
Uh, well, I haven't really faced that problem again. So, um, I mean, so my, I'm not married, but like, so my partner was also doing a master's, but she came here like a year before I came. So of course it was, and I was in India that time. So, different time zones altogether. And now when I have started, she just graduated. So there are things, I mean, we don't, we didn't have to talk about it. It just like sort of flows with us. Like, if I have things to do, like I just tell, and then it's okay. We catch up at a later time, vice versa. And she's working now, so it's always, uh, for us. It's more like a implicit understanding. So,
Yeah,
never
and that
really
support
had
and
to have. Yeah,
communication, it sounds like were pretty important, and that you
yeah,
all were going through similar situations.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, definitely. Tenzin, do you have anything to add to, especially like just managing, communication with others or making sure your boundaries are okay?
Um, Even I didn't have any like sort of trouble with that. Uh, but I am like there are a few programs that are tailored around like these kind of things. So finding out such programs would be helpful. But even if your program, like the program that you are planning to go into, if it's not tailored around that, I think you'll still be able to manage that. Just that you have to manage your time properly and then make sure that you're not operating in the gray area. Set the boundary like where your marriage life starts, like where your life starts and where the school ends. Yeah,
Mhm.
and vice versa. So yeah, in that sense, yeah. I-
Yeah, no, grad school's interesting for sure. And Minto, go ahead.
One thing I did want to add really quickly that obviously like it's always going to be walking a line of balancing, but something that I've also found like as much as it's important to have your boundaries and be like this is serious and this is cool and we need to get things done and not have other things intruding. I think as long as you have that like in your mind, it'll take care of itself. But there's also been times, especially when this like when it is flexible or where I've kind of used like an 80-20 rule and also given myself permission sometimes to say like it's okay if I like sometimes it is necessary to prioritize your social and things in your relationships and you actually will be a better student for it because I know some other online students that are so locked into being a student online that they don't realize that they're disconnected from their social life and they're actually like more stressed out because of it.
Yeah, yeah, kind of going back to that work-life balance thing, and just making sure that you're doing what you need to for your own mental health and wellness, and then you'll show up better as a student and as a person for sure. And the one last question we have, at least for right now, is actually for Minto, specifically talking about like psychedelic research. Just wanting to see like what you have access to as an online student, and kind of how that works. I know you had talked a little bit about how you're working on maybe coming to Madison in the fall. If you just want to talk a little bit about what the opportunities are for specifically like the PPI folks, and then I'll let you know if we have any other questions in the chat before we head out.
Really, there's tons to know about research opportunities at Madison. The interesting thing is we're not, with us being a professional degree program and not like a traditional graduate program, our focus isn't explicitly on research in the program, but there are opportunities to do it. You do just have to actively like apply yourself to those opportunities. There are some application type jobs that I've seen on the job portal. Like there's a job portal for students in Madison that will tell you when they're hiring maybe like TAs or research assistants. I felt a little underwhelmed by that because I'm more interested in research than teaching. Those of you who are coming from academic research will know that it's kind of like an individual process with academic research. When you want to be a research assistant or help out in somebody's lab, you kind of need to be reaching out to them individually and doing your homework and then talking to the PI about what's going on in their lab. So for me, that's been a process for sure, but all of my professors have been, especially with the ones whose classes I'm already in, have been very receptive and able to schedule meetings with me to talk about things like that. We also have a really great summer internship. I don't like well, summer internship things going on. At least from what I saw last year, and hopefully soon. This year, I think where there was like 6 or 7 internships last summer that were actually like created and curated specifically for PPI students. So it wasn't like, oh, like Promega's hiring, by the way. It was like Promega is going to hire one of you. So that was really, really cool, honestly, that they curated like those opportunities specifically for us. I didn't take advantage of those last semester, or last summer rather, but I've heard very good things, and we'll be looking at that as an opportunity. So I think that's like a huge pulling point, honestly, is that they have a lot of really great career resources for you to engage in the world as is if you want to, and they also have opportunities specifically for PPI students. I think that's pretty much it. I think I hit everything I was thinking about
Yeah.
for.
No, that's great. And just to kind of also, broaden it, right? Like all master's degrees and PhDs and other graduate programs will have different opportunities, whether it's through like general UW grad schools, whether it's through their specific programs. So that's something where you'll want to look at those opportunities. And I believe Tenzin talked a little bit about that too, of like being aware of what those options are, the funding options, as well as like the different opportunities available within the program and kind of outside of it, before applying or before deciding to accept admission, just to make sure that you're aware of like what you should expect and the standards that you can keep there too.
For sure. And also for me as a research scientist, the enrollment coaches are so good about giving feedback with personal statements. But especially because I was interested in particular research and professors, it was a really good idea to put specifics when you're doing research in your personal statement and say, hey, like, I would love to study with this professor who's doing XYZ so that, the school can see that you've really done your homework and you are picturing your life there.
Yeah, and that goes for even looking at like curriculum and different aspects of curriculum, making sure that you're really taking a look at the program and then implementing some of the things that you've seen and that you're excited about into your statements of purpose and your application materials, so the program does see that you are truly interested. That will only ever help you in that application process. So with that, it doesn't look like we have any other questions. I want to thank all of our panelists here for taking your time and being able to join us and share your experiences. We do have some folks in the chat that have been answered through our staff, which is great. But if anyone else in our audience is looking for further information on application processes, we do have some other webinars coming up later today, and then some open office hours also later today and early tomorrow morning. So you'll find all of that information on our website. You'll also find other resources that have been pre-recorded to help with application processes, learning about different programs, and all of that fun stuff to get a better feel for the graduate school. So thank you all for your time, and I think we'll end it here.